Welcome, I'm Bill Barney, and today I'm going to be sharing with you and sharing my expertise on energy healing, intuitive energy healing, and I'm going to be showing how easy it is to heal with emotional and physical issues when we approach it through energy healing and balancing the energies within us that we find intuitively through an energy healer such as myself. First of all, energy healing, why do we have problems in our life? And it can be an emotional problem, anxiety, stress, depression, whatever else is going on, just a deep sadness, or it can show up as some kind of health problem. Why do we have these? And I want to try to just boil this all down as simple as can be. And it all comes down to vibrational frequency. Every single organ, muscle, tissue in your body has a frequency, an optimum frequency that it is designed to operate at. And when it's operating at its certain frequency, things go along perfect. It's when something causes that frequency to fall below what it should be that causes the problem. So your heart, your lungs, your kneecap, whatever it is, has that frequency it's supposed to operate at. And that's perfect until something gets in the way. The easiest way I can demonstrate that is with tuning forks. I actually have organ tuning forks, organ and gland tuning forks for the body, and they are tuned to specific frequencies. And I use these sometimes in different healing methods that I use. But let me just take, for example, this gallbladder frequency. So if I'm working with a person to heal and they're having troubles with their gallbladder, I can just strike this fork, and I know that's kind of loud, and hold it next to the gallbladder, and the gallbladder starts to resonate and recognize that frequency, and it helps to speed up the healing process. But what happens if I've had some emotional trauma, some emotions that didn't get processed well in my past, that I didn't process, they just kind of trapped and landed in the gallbladder? It's not going to sound the same. Now, if it's just a little thing that's kind of hanging on, a little emotion, or an energy, not a large one, that is trapped or hung up in the gallbladder and affecting the gallbladder, and I strike that, you can tell it doesn't quite sound the same. It still strikes, but not with the same frequency. So the frequency is down, and the gallbladder doesn't process the proper fluids and juices for digestion that it should. Now just imagine that we have several things, and let's just take one big heavy thing. Maybe this is a loved one that died unexpectedly that was close to you, and I'm just hanging, of course, a roll of tape off. Obviously we don't have a roll of tape on our gallbladder, but this is how these things can affect the frequency. So now I strike it and it barely sounds. Well, once this gallbladder is going to have a real hard time functioning as nature intended it. And that's the easiest and simplest explanation that I can offer as to frequency. What is it that changes the frequency? Obviously it's not string and tape, right, that changes the frequency of these things in our lives. What I have found to be the most common cause of imbalances, anything to change the frequency, is trapped emotions. That can come from anything in our life, to a relationship gone wrong, to somebody treating us unfairly, we perceive, whatever it is, death, sorrow, grief, anything that happens to us that those emotions don't flow on through. They stick somewhere in our body. And thanks to Dr. Bradley Nelson, who came up with the emotion code, Dr. Nelson is a chiropractor, and he found that certain people, they just kept coming back and having to do adjustments with them. What he discovered is that trapped emotions, and this is the list that he eventually developed. You don't need to worry about reading the whole thing. You can just look up the emotion code chart anywhere on the internet on a search engine and come up with this same chart. But he discovered that he can intuitively find these emotions that are trapped within a person's body, and when you release the emotions, all at once the body would start to respond. So say he's got somebody with the neck that always he's trying to put back in place, and it comes out, and the client never seems to get better. Well, if that client has some trapped emotions of hatred, panic, insecurity, whatever, trapped in there, and he can release those energies, all at once that will start, those vertebrae and the muscles around it start operating at the optimal frequency that they were intended to operate at. Then when he makes the adjustment, it stays in. That's how he came to it, and it applies to so many areas in our life. And this is what I have found with the emotion code, that so many things are affected by trapped emotions. However, that is not the only thing that can create an imbalance. That's not the only thing that can make it so that our frequency doesn't stay at the optimum level where nature designed it to be on certain body parts, organs, tissues, what have you. It can be traumatic events. It can be other energies. And if you've heard of the body code, this is not the format to go into a long explanation of what the body code is. But with the body code, there's all these other things, everything from different foods that your body may need or may not be getting enough of, and also foods that are harmful, or even toxins, viruses, infections, things like that that can also affect. There's all kinds of outside pernicious influences and these other things that can affect, that are not trapped emotions, but they do vibrate at a lower frequency, and they cause things to create an imbalance. So just a quick review. If somebody's doing an emotion code, if somebody comes to me, for example, say, I've just got this incredible anxiety. Well, I will pose a question, and I'll go through muscle testing and say, okay, what is there an underlying imbalance for this person to have these anxieties? And I'll go, oh, trapped emotions. And then I will just muscle test. Is it in column A or B? I'll get a yes on, say, column B. Is it in row 4? I'll get a test that yes, it's in row 4. And then in row 4 on column B, there's an emotion of panic, taken for granted, indecisiveness, frustration, and depression. And I'll muscle test each one of those until one of those tests strong. Oh, well, that's a trapped emotion of panic. Okay. Well, what do you do with that? Once you realize you have this, do we have to go back and talk about it and have them write it down? No, it can be very, very simple to release that trapped emotion of panic. Once the subconscious mind identifies that and gives us the information we need to know about it, it's just an energy, it's a frequency that is trapped in the body. We just need to release the frequency. We don't have to do all this psychoanalysis. And it's just a matter of running a magnet. You can use a little refrigerator magnet on a business card. I've got one of these Nikan magnets that I use sometimes. Sometimes I use other magnets. But grab this one. I just grabbed this one for this demonstration purpose. When I'm working on myself, or if I'm working remotely and having a client isn't in person, I'll take and have them run the magnet up over their head to the back of their neck. This will disperse that energy to break up the lock pattern throughout the body. A little bit hard to understand and comprehend until you experience that release. And sometimes it can feel very profound. But it can be, energy healing can be that simple, of identifying what the underlying imbalance is and releasing it with a magnet. Now that is not the only way that we release some of these energies. With trapped emotions, that is the simplest and the prescribed method, as Dr. Nelson teaches, to release those. However, there's other things that I have found, other ways to release that can be more effective in certain circumstances. But I demonstrate the magnet here because it's just one way to show you how fast that can happen. Let's talk a little bit about the heart wall as we're talking about trapped emotions. And this is also, thanks to Dr. Nelson, the discovery of the heart wall. There's a lot of information on the internet. I've actually put out a few videos explaining the heart wall, but I'd like to just simplify it as much as possible. We all have different forms of communication. We've got our verbal communication, and body language experts will tell you that may be 10% or less of the actual communication between people, that our body language has a lot to do with it. But there are other forms that we communicate or get a sense with people from, whether you want to call that as a sixth sense or through our subconscious mind, but we just pick up vibes from certain people. And I believe that comes, the antenna, the broadcaster, whatever that is in the receiver, is right here at the heart. Whether that's the source of the spirit, what have you, it has something to do with the heart. And when that's blocked off, those messages don't get out. And if we can compare that to a two-way radio, you push the button to talk, let it off to receive. If all the conditions are right, if the person can hear, is within your signal range, they are listening and tuned in, there's not static interference, and your batteries are charged up, you can have a clear two-way communication with another person. But you can understand all the problems of interference, a stormy day, solar flares, dead batteries, being too far away can make it so that you cannot communicate with a two-way radio. And we have this through our heart that we communicate, and that power can be felt. Distance doesn't seem to be a problem with this, where it might be with the two-way radio. Somebody clear around in another country can feel that energy that comes from our heart when it's, well, whether it's pure or not, they will feel it. What happens is with trapped emotions, many of these, the subconscious mind ends up building a wall, a literal wall of trapped emotions around our heart. And so if we have trapped emotions of stubbornness, of being taken for granted, of guilt, of hatred, of humiliation, and maybe even jealousy, or feeling like you're not good enough and overwhelmed. Well, all of that energy that you send out into the world, as you set your goals, your declarations, your affirmations, even trying to attract the perfect person and relationship into your space, as you send that energy out, it goes through the filter of all this junk that's wrapped around your heart, which we call the heart wall, all this emotional junk, and it flavors it. It's like putting static in a radio. I like to tell people it's like having a coffee filter with a little bit of dirt and other junk in it. It's going to leave a little aftertaste with the coffee that you're filtering through there. This, as your heart messages goes out to other people, it will filter and flavor it. It'll block some, and what gets through has a taint or an aftertaste to it, much like going through a dirty filter in a coffee or an espresso machine, call it what you will. And they get the wrong message. What you might send out, let's just go on a relationship thing. Say that you're in a social situation, you're single, you're looking for that person in your life, and you see someone across the room, like, you just get that sense. This is the kind of person that really, I'm attracted to them, and I don't know why. It isn't all just about looks, of course, but you just feel drawn to certain people. And so you start feeling that automatically your heart, your spirit sends out little love butterflies. And as they go through that filter, they get transformed into wombats or bats or crows or something else. And that person senses that energy from you, and they go, well, that's a nice looking person, but I just feel really weird. And it could be your soulmate, but because of your heart wall, a lot of the messages just won't get through the filter, and those that do get through are not going to come through pure from what you intended. The reverse of this same thing is true also. When other people are sending you those feelings, those messages, subconsciously, unconsciously sending those messages that draw people together for the right situations, they can be sending it out pure as can be, but what comes to you gets blocked by your filter, and what does get through comes through with a taint or an aftertaste to it. That is not what the original intent was, and so the heart wall can create a lot of problems. As we clear those heart walls, I've seen this in myself and other clients as well, all kinds of situations where their job improves, their relationships that they already have improve. And all at once, maybe if they're single and they don't have that person in their life, they just seems like magically, or these series of coincidences all at once take place to where that person is drawn to them. And I've seen this time and time again. And I attribute this to the law of attraction. And so if you've read The Secret, you're trying to practice the law of attraction, practice abundance to call things into your space, to manifest things, and it doesn't seem to be working for you, and you're following all the rules in the books and the guidelines that you have, and it's still not working, very likely the problem is the heart wall, that you've got this filter, this block that's blocking things from getting out. And so as you're sending out that message to attract things, that gets blocked. But once you clear the heart wall, you start to live in a state of synchronicity where things are drawn to you. They come into your space as you need them, and life gets to be a whole lot easier. A lot of things improve with that. How do we release the heart wall? Well, it's simply quite easy. We ask the question as we do the muscle testing, are there any trapped emotions in the heart wall? It's always, what I found, consisted of trapped emotions. And we just call out those trapped emotions and clear them as they come up. Some of the emotions, a lot of times it'll come up guilt, and you'll say, okay, go ahead and release that. And then we'll say hatred might be the next emotion. And I'll muscle test and say, can I release that now? And now I'm asking the question of that person's subconscious mind. And they'll say, no. Nope, we need more information before we can release it because it needs to finish processing. So I might need to take them back to age 14 when a teacher lost their homework and gave them an F and told them they didn't turn it in, whatever the circumstance may be. Something in their life where they still have a lot of emotional energy stored up. And once we identify that, then we say, can we now release that? And invariably the subconscious will say, yes, you can go ahead and release it. And then you just take your magnet and release it at that point. As you do that, you start to break down. Imagine a wall made of bricks around the heart, and you start to break that down. When the heart is completely cleared, then you have clear communication, two-way communication that can go in and out to another person. So that's about as simple as I can explain the heart wall, just to tell you what that entails, or what is involved, how extensive this process is. I find that in 3 different times of spending about 15 to 20 minutes, let's say an average of 20 minutes per person at 3 different times, we can clear most heart walls. I found that to be most, I would say 90-95% of the people that I have worked with, I've been able to do it in 3 sessions. I do use some other techniques to speed up the process, and I know that has a lot to do with it. And so 3 20-minute sessions, and most people are able to clear all of the trapped emotions and have that heart wall cleared. Now they can have other trapped emotions elsewhere in their body causing other imbalances, but that heart wall issue specifically is cleared. And what I find is as you do that, a lot of the health problems improve and or just completely go away and are healed when you release that emotional energy through there. Trapped emotions are not the only energy that can create imbalances. It can be an old grudge that you're holding, and it can be a small issue of unforgiveness. I have found that so many times, that just by not forgiving someone for blocking you in traffic, an old thing that someone in your family said to you or someone close, and you're just holding on to that because it still hurts so bad. By holding on to that, that can create an imbalance, and again with your tuning fork, things are not going to function at the proper frequency that they are, and our emotions are very much connected to all of these energies, and it will cause the emotional problems that we have, anxiety, depression, you name a whole list of things that are results of holding on to these trapped energies. There's other energies in the environment. I have discovered over the years, and in the course of specializing with 18 different healing modalities, I have discovered many other things that contribute to creating imbalances. And some of them have really surprised me as I've discovered that, but as I go ahead and release that and see the changes in a person, it can be very amazing. As I talk about some of these other energies that are not the trapped emotions, what I'd like to do is just take and show you the computer screen on my laptop and explain the body code and then some other things that I've also put into a computer program of how I have all these listed out so I can intuitively find them. So let me just take my computer. I'm going to put it up here on a little stand so that you can see. This is the home page for the body code right here. With that home page, you start here, and if someone is having a shoulder ache, the middle is there, and so you muscle test and go, okay, what is the underlying imbalance is why this person has a shoulder ache. And so you look at all 6 of these and muscle test until you get strong on one. And so I may get a muscle test that it's in this department over here on misalignments, and so I click on that. Now understand, the computer is not doing the testing here. It's all done through intuition, but so we have misalignments here. Now it could be something that is skeletal, it could be something in the systems, the organs, a gland, or a connective tissue. So not all misalignments are something to do with the bones, but let's say for example that I muscle tested and it said it is skeletal. Alright, and so then I would test for having a shoulder issue. You would think it would be what they call, the external or appendicular skeleton. But you muscle test. You don't just assume and let the subconscious mind tell you. So we click on the appendicular, and let's just say it shows it's in the upper limbs, okay? And then we can test and see. It might be the scapula, it might be a clavicle, it might show you some of the humerus bones, but it can start to tell you what's out of alignment. And then you can, let's say that it tells us there's a problem with this humerus bone right here, where the problem is with this imbalance. So then we start over, we go back to home screen here, and we ask what's the underlying imbalance with this humerus bone. And it might tell us, most likely, one of the first answers you'll get is it'll be in the energy section here, and it'll be emotional. And right here we have the emotion code chart. And so you release the trapped emotions. You might do 3 or 4 of those. Come back to home screen again. So you've released your trapped emotion, muscle test of the other imbalances with this shoulder. Okay, the misalignment is taken care of. And so now we go back to the shoulder, imbalances with that. And it might come up to another energy. And then it might be a post-traumatic energy. One thing that I often see with physical injuries, I see a lot of physical trauma where energy gets stuck of a previous blow that the person had in their body. That energy gets stuck in their body and it doesn't move on through. Another thing is inflammation energy that gets stuck. Long after the swelling goes down, that inflammation gets stuck. You release that with a magnet, and the energy goes away. There are many different possibilities, and that's why we have these charts to be aware of that. Now another thing, and not necessarily about the shoulder, but it could be something in, you have all kinds of toxins. So heavy metal toxins, dental toxicity, something from chemicals in the environment. And on any one of these, you would just muscle test that would lead you to that, and then this chain here, if it leads you over to heavy metals, you click on that, and then you can muscle test how to release mercury, lead, cadmium, aluminum. Those are your most common heavy metal toxins, and it has protocols that tell you how to detox the body from that as well. That's one area that we go to. I'm just going to show you quickly what the areas are. There is pathogens, so different kinds of mold, viruses, parasites, fungus, and bacterial infections. Those can all be possibilities. Again, imbalances as to why we are having a personal problem, any type of issue, be it emotional or physical. It can be we skip circuits and systems, so it might lead us to somewhere in an acupuncture system, different kinds of disconnections, chakras, glands, organs, and then other systems throughout the body. So it's very extensive. The skeletal system, muscular system, respiratory, the nervous system, lymphatic, immune, endocrine, all of these type of systems that we can be intuitively led to. And as we click on any one of these, say it's in the endocrine system, then you've got a whole nother list of choices, and as you click on them, you can get more information about that and help get down to the underlying core issue of what is going on with the imbalances you're trying to work with. We already did misalignments. It could be, muscle, organ, gland, and then there's nutrition and lifestyle, which covers an awful lot. Foods, vitamins, nutrients, pH balance, sleep, magnetic, color deficiency. There can be so many things. It's countless the amount of energies that can disrupt and cause us to have a state of dis-ease where things are out of balance. So that is the emotion or the body code system that was also developed by Dr. Nelson. That's one of the things that I used to find imbalances. The other is one that I have developed of my own to categorize everything else that I have found that isn't included in the body code. For example, some issues are just hard to heal, and so I put categories for that. So if I muscle test that it comes to my system and it comes to hard to heal issues, then I can muscle test what kind of issues here we have. And as you can see, that well, there's several issues, and you just muscle test for one of those. For example, on one of these, we may need to get a permission for it to heal, and then we need to know whether we get the permission from the body, the spirit, the cellular intelligence, generational, or what have you that way. So many possibilities as you get into this field of energy healing. But these are some of the things that we do and how we find these imbalances. So it's not guesswork. We're not just following a clinical manual as we do this. If a person has these symptoms, we go with such and such treatments. We go intuitively, because you can have 10 people come with headaches, and they'll have 10 different reasons why they're having headaches. One of the other big factors, and I mentioned this slightly before, is forgiveness can be a big issue. Sometimes it can be forgiving self, sometimes others. We need to forgive a situation. Sometimes we're mad at God, and that one can be a hard one to admit. We need to forgive that situation. There may be just a component of forgiveness that we're lacking. We may need to seek forgiveness from someone else. We may be holding someone in judgment. And let me just go one more. So there's all different kinds of traumatic events that could lead to any one particular underlying thing. So because a person's having headaches, it may not be the worst trauma they've been through in their life. So we can muscle test. It may be a birthing trauma from their own birth, or if it's a woman, from giving birth or a miscarriage. These different traumatic events, and once we find out what they are, we can heal them. But say, for example, it falls into this category of accidents, natural disasters, and you just muscle test, hey, it's in this square, the traumatic event, the reason this person's having an imbalance. So how do we figure out what that is? Well, we have a list of different kinds of traumatic events that can happen in that category, and then we can muscle test on which one of those. As soon as we get that, the person most often will go, oh yeah, I know just what that's about. Then we can go ahead and heal the trauma specifically and heal things at the root cause. There are many other energies that are not trapped emotions that I have found also. So discordant energies is one, and I just grouped all of these energies into a chart similar to the emotion code chart, and you do the same way the testing. It's just a different energy on a different frequency, not a trapped emotion, but it can be similar to that. Energy fields can be a big one also, different kinds of energy fields. So, and these are some that I've categorized and discovered over time, different types of energy fields that can be affecting and stopping a healing situation. So that's a brief overview. I'm going to go ahead and close this now. Well, let me get that back to 0. And someday I will market this, but this is for my own use now, but to show you how I go about finding the underlying root cause of an imbalance or a situation, a challenge, an issue that we're having. That is a pretty good overview of what I do as an energy healer and how we release these, and how you don't need to be in person. This work can all be done over the through the internet, through long distances. But I'd like you to experience how easy it is to heal. Now, I've given you a lot of information here, and it may sound logical. You may be scratching your head trying to understand how that can possibly work. I want to offer you a free healing session, a 20-minute session with me, so that you can experience firsthand, whether this is your first introduction into energy healing or whether you've done healing work before and you want to see what it's like to work with me. And I'd like you to go to our website, www.allthingspossible.biz, and if you enter the full thing, it's /healing, or just go to our website, www.allthingspossible.biz, look on the healing page, Healing with Bill, and it has a form there that you can fill out and book an online appointment right from our website. I invite you to do that. It's a no obligation, no pressure appointment. It's a way for me to introduce my work to you and you to see the value of it. And if you would like to continue, I would love to heal with you. Bless you. Thank you for joining us today. I hope that you have received a lot of benefit that can bless and enrich your life. Thank you for joining us. Bye-bye.